Thank you very much, Zach. We really appreciate you kicking us off this meeting with those words. And those of us at GSA are proud that we're engaging AI appropriately as we learn what AI is. Now, with those remarks, I welcome Fernando Arias and Joyce Lee, our meeting co-chairs, to take it from here. They will introduce themselves and also do things like baseline and level set when it comes to what are these terms like AI and how is AI different from Gen AI or generative AI? These are things I know lots of people today these are questions lots of people today have, and we figured we'd take the next half hour or so to help define those. So Joyce and Fernando.
Thanks, Michael. Really appreciate also Zach Whitman joining us this morning and providing his interesting and comprehensive remarks. I know that right now it's a very exciting time to address the topic of AI in the federal government. And so by way of introduction, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today at our very first GBAC event focused on AI in federal buildings. My name is Fernando Arias, and I'm the founder and principal consultant of Carbon Smart Strategies. With over 20 years of experience in sustainable architecture, operations, and construction, I focused on advancing high-performance building design and reducing environmental impact. Today, along with my co-hosts, I'm very excited to explore how AI can play a transformative role in optimizing project delivery and facility operations for federal buildings. By leveraging AI, we have the opportunity to enhance efficiency, drive decarbonization, push the boundaries of sustainability in the built environment, and do so much more. So, Joyce Lee, welcome you to introduce yourself as well.
Thank you. I would like to extend my welcome to all of you as well. I am Joyce Lee, president of Indigo JLD Green Health. Our practice is focused on sustainability and wellness. And prior to this, I served as the chief architect of New York City OMB, working on many green buildings and projects. And I had the great pleasure of knowing and working with many of you in the audience. So it is really delightful to be here with you today. We are embarking on an amazing journey, as Zach has said, and we invite all of your participation. Next. I am not going to read all 5 bullets of what our learning objectives are, but when Fernando and I sat down and talked about an intro before our experts join us, we're hoping to create a common understanding and common language so that we can sufficiently and intelligently articulate both the opportunities and the challenges of what we're facing when we work on greening the federal building portfolio. Next. So let's take a quick walk down memory lane. AI is a branch of computer science that was first coined, artificial intelligence, in 1956 at the Dartmouth Conference. Before the introduction of AI to the built environment, we have a long history of making buildings smarter. Automation in building is nothing new, and the federal buildings portfolio, be they leased or owned facilities, really lend themselves to advanced building management systems. And as things like sensors, server technology, and Wi-Fi connections become more and more available, the Internet of Things, IoT, became the name of the day. And what we are seeing is that now air monitoring, audio visual, HVAC controls, security, fire safety, and of course, energy management is now prevalent. And with larger and larger databases, interconnectivity is key. Similarly, in urban design and smart cities, my work at the Bloomberg administration in New York was also aligned with a data mindset. Success in design and placemaking can be measured through data, like linking walkability with restaurant revenue, or linking bike lanes with health evidence, some of which is documented in the book that I co-authored called Active Design Guidelines. I was very interested in technology, solving some of these problems as chief architect at New York City OMB. Next. And fast forward to AI being available to the public. ChatGPT's launch unleashed multiple opportunities for the general public to engage in this AI journey. You are seeing here consultancy, PwC, looking to use Gen AI in many topics related to ESG for environmental, social, and governing reporting. And global real estate is a very big part of that ESG reporting. Imagine every organization, be they public or private, can have access to low-cost, high-speed, and fast-paced analysis. And with new knowledge, like you pick anyone here, renewable energy integration, pollution prevention, low-carbon material, and waste reduction, how could it positively impact the real estate industry? Next. And many at GSA are at the AEC industry for architecture, engineering, and construction. The annual AIA conference, A24, took place in Washington, D.C. this past June. And there's an AI symposium and multiple panels of AI presentations, really only 18 months after ChatGPT was launched. The opportunity of BIM modeling and development and digital twins are here now. And how can we also use photogrammetry will be discussed by the panelists later. Next. Next, yes, thank you. More and more Gen AI, next here, appearing everywhere, as we see, with prompts like, in this case, ecological design and urban backgrounds. We could see very quickly multiple images generated at high speed. And many of us are clients and consumers of these images. Therefore, it's all the more important to understand what we're seeing and what could be deep fakes. The concept of guardrail in AI development is really important. And if we have time in the panel, we can also discuss content provenance. Next. Gen AI in graphics will be further explored in the summit. This academic exercise illustrates the divergent outcomes of both design qualities and solutions. In Studio Tim Fu's design class, a prompt such as honeycomb mixed-use building can generate all of these solutions and results, and many of which differ in program optimization, material selection, let's say a sustainable outcome, and of course, constructability. Next. And relating to the last slide on built environment impact, there are more good news on the horizon. AI is transforming every industry, including ours. And while GBAC has a specific focus within a large agency with many functions, we now know that greening the federal portfolio is within reach. Particularly, we see encouragement from the administration. The Lawrence Berkeley Lab has charts showing us the interconnectedness of various strategies accompanied by policy. It demonstrates that 90% of carbon reduction is possible and can be achieved. Now, that is enormous. And on the right, you also see thought leaders like Dr. Noorbash, building on machine learning and generative AI to create even more solution for design and construction. This is a book that has been recently published. Next. And about built environment impact. The Olympics only finished in Paris more than a month ago. The Paris 2024 organizers have accomplished a laudable goal by cutting down 80% of carbon emissions compared to a similar sport event held in the past. What are the Paris organizers focusing on? They correctly zoomed in on construction and energy first. And isn't that what we are focusing on here as well? And if simulation and modeling could help the 2024 Olympics that much, it looks like AI can help the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles even more. Next. Well, along with all the advancement, there are potential pitfalls and blind spots. And for sustainability professionals, the number one is energy intensity. Data centers enable the growth of AI, but it also consumed 524 terawatt hour in 2023 alone. What is a terawatt? It is equivalent to 1,000,000 megawatt, which is power plant level. And in our buildings, we're still talking about kilowatt hours. And the possibility of this AI data center growth can surpass the steel industry and the concrete industry if we don't watch carefully. And some even say the aviation industry. So for example, tech giants like Google, Meta, and Amazon already operate some of the more 80 data centers in Ireland with many new facilities in the pipeline. Look at what happened last year. They consumed 21% of the country's electricity need, which is more than all of the urban households combined in the country. On September 12th, there was a government leaders and industry roundtable that happened to support AI infrastructure policy and discuss this energy spike of a data center. And along with energy intensity and power infrastructure, there is also a huge water use needed to cool data centers. So thank you to the White House for the leadership to address all of these topics. By talking about it like what we do today, we can encourage more public-private partnerships to ensure grid reliability and resource efficiency, and the urgency of renewable energy source, as well as low-carbon electricity, is all the more critical. And if 2023 is a nascent state of AI, the future of energy demand will skyrocket. Next, please. Pitfalls also include query efficiency and grid security. For example, what would power outage mean if we are so reliant on this power source? And on the topic of energy efficiency, we hope that this can be a take-home and that you'll remember something like a Google search consumes 0.3 watt-hour, which is equivalent to a 9-watt light bulb going on for 2 minutes, whereas a Google Gemini or ChatGPT prompt consumes about 3 watt-hour, the same light bulb going on for 20 minutes. And there is a 1 to 10 comparison right away. And then there's hallucinations that you may have heard of. It is a tool that perceives patterns or objects that are non-existent or imperceptible to human observers that could create output that are nonsensical or altogether inaccurate. And in addition, there are privacy, data security, workforce, and bias concerns addressed in the September 12th roundtable that we all need to be vigilant of. But with all of these big barriers, aren't we all even more inspired to overcome them? Next. And at GBAC, our advisory committee is always looking for low-carbon solutions for the federal building portfolio and finding the best way and most meaningful ways to reach them. Scope 1 and 2, you see here, middle and left, relates to the buildings and fleet that are direct and indirect emissions, something that the GSA has quite a bit of control over. And then scope 3 on the right refers to up and downstream and supply chain, such as the procurement within the federal government. We need fast reduction from all of these 3 scopes, and the administration has very ambitious targets. Next. Finally, at a glance, how does AI work at a basic level? If you see on the left, there is the data formatting, and then on to engineering and algorithm. The middle is the training of the model and deep learning, which is the crux of a lot of what we talk about AI. And then comes inference and the prediction of output. For those of you who are not familiar with inference, it is the trained machine learning model used to draw conclusions based on brand new data. So inference is really AI model in action. Is everything perfect in this early stage of how AI intelligence works? No, far from it. That is why the feedback loop is emphasized here. With feedback and iteration, we can create more guardrail. And it is particularly important, as Zach has said, considering there are additional privacy and confidentiality concerns in the federal sector. So with this brief introduction, we are moving into more specifics in AI and federal government. Thank you, Fernando.
Absolutely. And as I continue the perspective that Joyce set out for us, I want to add a little bit of context here. Because as the Green Building Advisory Committee, our mandate is to gather industry perspectives and expertise around emerging topics that the government might want to have some lens on. And we got here to talk about artificial intelligence today because of an executive order. So how does an executive order on AI impact federal buildings and infrastructure? And this EO published in October of last year set out a couple of key priorities. Others are not included in this slide, but I thought of direct importance was the focus on safe AI development, a government-wide AI adoption, as well as some guidelines and operational processes to implement. Ultimately, also discussing how AI in federal infrastructure is associated with data security, national security, and other privacy matters. And then ultimately, AI use principles, and this lends into equity, ethics, privacy, civil liberties, etc. And then finally, of course, federal workforce training and how the federal workforce can consistently adopt the use of AI. So we're here really to talk about how all of these elements will express themselves through the point of view of our expert speakers, as well as through this segment of slides. And I know that there's going to be a lot of information here provided today. So I fully invite folks, if any of you have questions as we're presenting information today, and then of course, certainly in our panels to come, drop your questions into the meeting chat. And although we'll prioritize GBAC members who chime in with questions, we're open to gathering as much feedback and perspectives from all attendees today. We'll seek to address those questions when we have time through our presentations towards the end of the segments. So moving forward, what progress has been made following the executive order on AI? And these are some just highlights. There's been some progress on risk management frameworks as mandated. There's been some criteria developed for testing AI and cybersecurity and biosecurity. The OMB has released draft guidance for federal agencies on AI use. The Department of Homeland Security has been addressing AI-related risks to critical infrastructure. And then finally, federal agencies, many of them, including GSA, are developing AI strategies and implementation plans. And so today's session, our summit, multiple panels that we're presenting, helps to further the GSA's current approach to addressing AI implementation in its agency and broadly across the federal government. So Joyce earlier was mentioning Gen AI and a lot of ways in which we interpret artificial intelligence. So today, with this moment at the beginning of my next section, there's going to be a lot of keywords and a lot of definition of terms, because this session is titled Baseline and Level Setting, so that as you hear from our speakers later, we have some broad understanding of what these terms mean. I know that Mr. Zach Whitman also brought these terms up. So on the left, machine learning. Machine learning is a subset of AI focused on systems that learn from data, identifying patterns and making decisions with minimal human intervention. And how it works is that machine learning models are trained on large data sets to improve over time in tasks like predictions, classifications, optimizations. So think of that as if we have a really smart Power BI dashboard that can deploy algorithmic forecast curves and can take existing data sets and extrapolate patterns and predict into the future. There's other ways that we could think about machine learning, but it is an extension of processes that we've already been optimizing today, including spell check, including a variety of accelerators on text, mobile phones, etc. But generative AI on the right is really what ChatGPT broke into the market back in November of 2022. And generative AI is a branch of artificial intelligence that creates new content, such as text, images, music, and it's based on learned patterns from large data sets. It's a generative AI where we also see some of those hallucinations because it's the generative capabilities of that artificial intelligence, which sometimes may exaggerate or assemble information in outputs that is combined from different learned patterns that maybe are not congruent or not from the same set. So how it works is generative AI models, or Gen AI models, like any GPT, are trained to generate new outputs that resemble the data that they were trained on, from reports to realistic simulations. So from our presenters today, and certainly in the project delivery panel, you'll hear quite a bit more about generative AI. And so what are some of the use cases for machine learning in federal buildings? And I'm going to slow down in these sections so that I provide a lot of opportunity to take some of this information in. So first of all, energy management and optimization. Predictive maintenance predicts equipment failures, reducing downtime and costs. Of course, obviously, this is all based on existing legacy data, but a lot of it is also then able to combine additional patterns of information like weather, like occupancy, etc. Energy usage predictions forecast energy consumption for efficient use. Smart grids optimizes energy distribution within federal buildings. You can see that some of this is already about Internet of Things, or IoT, like Joyce mentioned earlier. And we've also got smart building operations. So this is going beyond building automation systems of today, or building management systems of today, and moving into automated facility management, which automates tasks like lighting, climate control, booking reservations, asset tracking, allows the location of various pieces of equipment, whether they're mobile or static pieces of equipment, monitors, projectors, etc., and geolocates these things, and is able to expertly and quickly find replacement schedules, etc. And then, of course, HVAC controls, something like what we've got probably in many of our homes, Google Nest or other types of learning thermostats out there, which, of course, helps to ensure energy efficient operations. Additional uses of machine learning include sustainability and emission reductions. So as there are opportunities to optimize lighting, HVAC, and water systems, this also connects back to Joyce's presentation on the scopes and reporting on basically carbon footprinting. And it enables engineering teams to address at the portfolio scale a variety of operational shortfalls, especially in areas where there are not sophisticated controls in place. Ultimately, carbon footprint reduction with AI it's really cool because there are a lot of strategies that can be applied that may perhaps be outside of the box, or perhaps best practices given a certain locality. ultimately resulting into lower emissions like off-peak energy use and renewable sources and equipment replacements, etc. Now, what are some use cases for generative AI in federal buildings? So this is a lot of what Joyce's panel will cover in project delivery, but of course, architectural design generation, the cool stuff that allows teams to rapidly generate innovative designs aligned with sustainability, space allocation, budget control, speeding up planning, but also perhaps also factoring in new patterns of remote working, hybrid work, etc., that are beyond sometimes the capabilities of some stakeholders and some teammates working on designs. Space layout optimization also suggests efficient layouts based on space usage patterns, enhancing comfort, productivity. This kind of begins to lend itself to health and wellness, and certainly biophilic design and the capacity to integrate wellness into space optimization informed through generative AI. Then we go back to smart building operations and some of the HVAC systems that are controlled, but this time now using multidimensional data inputs. And certainly, for example, today, Thursday, many of us are aware of some of the challenges going on with the Federal Aviation Administration and air travel because of Hurricane Helene. So it would be those kinds of data patterns that also can be activated through generative AI to guide smart building operations. Finally, content generation for building communication. This is an area where I think we've seen some challenges, in fact, with the capacity for certain generative AI tools to accurately render text or to situationally be aware of the context in images. But automated report writing that is able to translate outputs of reports in multiple languages, in multiple education levels and tones of voice, that ultimately helps to educate and inform multiple stakeholders on the performance, maintenance, and energy use of equipment and of systems in federal buildings. And then ultimately also for the occupants themselves, the capacity to integrate infographic information and personalized messages for maintenance, energy tips, emergencies, and other types of behavior adjustments inside of buildings to be more efficient. So there's a couple of resources here, and I know that we will be so excited to publish a recap of today's event. So I don't expect anyone to really track all of these, but just know that the Department of Energy, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, a lot of these folks are also working extensively on these topics, and we'll be so excited to share some of these with you towards the end of the event and the recap. Additionally, on the private side, Harvard Business Review, MIT Technology, and then of course, OpenAI, one of the leading AI firms, have a lot of different ways of engaging with stakeholders to enhance your understanding of AI, whether it's machine learning or generative AI and federal buildings. And so folks that know me and of course know Carbon Smart Strategies are very aware that I'm a fervent, ardent, passionate adopter of artificial intelligence. And so how did tools enhance the creation of this presentation and overall, even the backgrounds that we have today that you see here with that Bauhaus sustainability pattern that we've deployed for our speakers? So this presentation incorporates text generated with the assistance of AI tools, including Perplexity, Gemini, and ChatGPT to enhance the content and the quality and the efficiency of the content you're seeing today. I'll also take a second to say that the most important skills, I think, that we need to retain as users of any of these advanced technologies are down to the basics, which is the capacity to discern to curate, to define, and to shape the utilization of the tools is important. And I think that artificial intelligence is bringing to us an opportunity to reacquaint ourselves with what is within the human agency or the capacity of the person, and what is the extension of that, and at what point is there something else that takes over? Because as we've seen the progressions, and of course in Joyce's section, we saw the honeycomb patterns. You know, as a former architect, I grew up in the age of parametric design, and so we've seen, you know, computer-aided design evolve into building information management and then continue growing. So as these tools come on, I think it's important to remember that prompting and creating great questions are just some basic skill sets that enable us to interact with these technologies more effectively. And like Michael Bloom said in the chat, and in case you haven't been reviewing the chat, would love to remind you that, you know, the Green Building Advisory Committee nor the GSA favors or advocates for any one specific tool or any one specific product, but look how many products and how many different tools. And this was a 45 list out of what I gathered initially was 100 different tools. So many new tools are out there in the market today. And some of these tools go through updates and revisions. And so it's so incumbent on not only the federal workforce, but all of us that work with our federal partners to continue to bridge the divide and to identify, with a lot of pilot projects and a lot of samples and testing, which tools are appropriate for which agency or which process or which set of stakeholders, so that we can deliver everything on time, on budget, and with the best quality ever. Because an additional takeaway that I've gained is that artificial intelligence, whether it's machine learning or generative AI, really helps to overcome cognitive biases of all kinds. And it helps us to further advance other goals that sometimes have been really challenging to address, like equity and inclusion. So some of these tools are really are very good at these solutions and integrating these perspectives. So invite you to continue to consult some of these tools further. And so key takeaways on AI tools: AI literacy as a competitive edge. I emphasize the growing importance of an AI literate workforce, maintaining a competitive advantage in business and in public sector, as highlighted by Grammarly. In case you're not using Grammarly, but I'm sure you're using spell check on Microsoft, products. Practical learning resources. So I super recommend this excellent creator on YouTube. His name is Jeff Su. I know that there's many others, so I'm not saying he's the only one. But Jeff Su got me started a long time back with some really easy to access essential tutorials. But of course, many of you probably already visit YouTube for any number of different how-to and DIY solutions. So I invite you to go check those out. And then empowering the workforce is really at the leadership level, and of course, all of us in leadership positions as well as in management positions. It's incumbent on us to encourage continuous learning and upskilling in AI technologies to empower our employees and our colleagues to enhance organizational innovation. And that could happen by so many different platforms and tools out there, like LinkedIn Learning, of course, YouTube, and beyond. So I want to leave you thinking about all of these solutions there. And then I'm going to scan quickly on the chat, and I see someone did ask about, will this PowerPoint be emailed out afterwards? And yes, we are happy to share this presentation after today. And so as I prepare to close out our event, we do have a couple of minutes left over. And I'm just curious, before Stephen comes on, we will conclude this session at 12:20 Eastern. So we have about 5 minutes. And I'm just curious if there were any other questions in the chat. Invite folks to drop in questions. until we see any questions, Joyce, do you have any additional
Great.
thoughts or anything else that you wanted to bring up before we wrap up?
I wholeheartedly applaud. I think the resources out there and that we should really give ourselves an opportunity to try everything. In terms of efficiency and the environmental impact, we know from this new tool, one thing that I think we can all get better at is understanding the resource efficiency between a simple prompt and a Google search. And my colleagues would also say the difference between a deep learning software and just a simple regression analysis. Kind of think through our own workflow and process in terms of how best to apply what tool under what circumstances. And a lot of AI colleagues talk about context, and that's another part of what we really want to understand is the context of our workflow, how we can best apply both the technology and the best practices.
Yeah, Joyce, I've learned that prompting, if there's no other like formula to it, like the equivalent of salt, sugar, all of those basic ingredients, prompting is about context, the task, examples, and the output that you want to generate. And I love that you brought up context, because even as we use AI tools, it's important to help the AI tool know what it is that we're asking it to do and for what kind of audience and what kind of use. So, and then, and in your presentation section, we talked a lot about the energy consumption of AI, a computing power. And I attended an event this week that was really focused on that. And, there was some exotic technologies like small modular reactors that were mentioned. And so I see that as computer chips and server processing cycles get more efficient, just like we have gotten more efficient with lighting and other systems, the supply of energy to data centers, mission critical facilities is adding capacity to the grid, because a lot of these facilities are powering themselves completely untethered from the grid. And I imagine that as we talk about energy security, historically and into the future, data security into the future as well, I see that data centers and this flow of investment because of artificial intelligence will actually really help us to become more resilient and more capable of thriving in our communities with energy stability and the capacity for us to also integrate with data more quickly and reduce lag time and be able to connect more easily with the things that we care about through technology. So I'm really excited about how our presentation really set the tone for today.